XO, and we'll be here for the next 40 minutes or so. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. So Miguel, welcome.
No, thank you for having me, Henry. Thank you.
I just thought we'd start by talking a little bit about the history of rum in Barbados, because Barbados is the home of rum. It's where it all started, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, the island of Barbados, when we talk about rum, the culture, the people, it is the center of the universe. At Mount Gay, we've actually been producing rum since 1703, so I think it's a number you're going to see in all of our bottles, big and bold. On the island, since then, we've continued every single day to produce rum. That date allows us to state, without challenge, that we are the first rum entity on planet Earth, and dare I say, in the universe. So we're very, very proud of that. And of course, if you ever hear anyone speak about rum, you're going to struggle to find anyone that speaks more passionately than a Bajan. So I'm happy to join you to take you on that journey this evening.
Because people were making spirits from sugar before, but Barbados was where it was elevated. Am I right? Where it was turned into something special?
Well, sure. I think when you look at the context of cane spirits, absolutely you would have heard of Arak, you would have heard of cachaça, in South America. And we can even go further back to medieval times where, cane spirits probably originated in where we know to be China or India. But absolutely, the refinement of the liquid itself and what it has become today, where it's an aged spirit, it's an unaged spirit, very much diverse in flavor, texture, how you can apply it, whether it's through cocktails, whether it's through sipping, food pairings, all the other amazing stuff that people are doing around the world. But absolutely, I think when you think of rum, it's synonymous with the Caribbean. And ultimately, it always comes back to Barbados and, of course, the home of rum, Mount Gay.
And so what's the Mount Gay story? Was there one person who founded a distillery?
Well, sure. I think, when you talk about history, we're 3 centuries plus. So it is quite a lot of history. But the name itself is actually the name of a man. So the name Mount Gay, usually people mistake and think, well, maybe it's a mountain. Of course, Barbados, very, very flat, population size, very, very small, 300,000 people. It's the most easterly landmass in the Eastern Caribbean. It used to be a colony of Great Britain. So our patron, so to speak, is a guy called Sir John Gay Ali. So it's really his middle name that became our namesake after he passed away in 1801. And an interesting story because he was not the actual owner, but rather the manager of the site. So the impact that he made would have been quite significant. So the origin of the name is actually a person. The estate itself, 300 square hectares. There's a Mount Gay village. There's the infrastructure that the site itself would have lent to over the centuries. And of course, the blends that we produce, the rum that we're drinking today is very different to the rum that we would have been producing in the 17th century. But absolutely it is linear. So it's kind of like being on a single train track, and the development of the liquid has been continuous. So although there are others that might claim, cane spirits predate Mount Gay, what they can't say is the consistency of that 300 plus years of producing, what I consider probably the best spirit on the planet.
Right. Can you see me now? Because I've got a funny feeling my camera is not working. Can you?
Unfortunately, no. Okay,
let me just have a little fiddle, and I will see if I can get my camera to work, because it seems to be
It's your warm tones that I'm enjoying.
That's very sweet of you to say. I'm going to try, because at my end I've got the camera, but
I'm hoping our viewers can see you.
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't really matter, because people are here to see you. Let me just see if I can work out what's going on, because my camera does seem to be on from this end.
Now I can see you.
Oh, okay, you can see me.
Maybe they can't see me. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Now I can see myself again. So you're toggling in between the two. I'll pour myself a little ram, little shot, little drop.
Yeah. Well, let's okay, that's me and that's you. So that's toggling. Okay, let's concentrate on you, and I'll be fiddling. Shall we try some rum? That's probably the answer to everything.
Sure. Maybe the rum will stop all of the technical issues that we have.
Yes, exactly.
So
what have we got first?
Well, let's start with the Mount Gay Black Barrel. I think, when you're doing a tasting, I always try to advise people to really focus, especially on your first rum, because it's your reference. I think it cannot be underestimated as humans. The way how we taste is we always start with a starting point, and then we always compare to that. And it's my delight, really, to say that we're going to dive straight into Mount Gay Black Barrel, because, of course, here in the UK, everybody knows, most people know Mount Gay through Mount Gay Eclipse, the one with the red cap. It's the #1 golden rum. There's a huge relationship, of course, with rum from Barbados and the UK for obvious reasons. A great mixable rum. And then the next step up, of course, is the Sublime Mount Gay Black Barrel. Now, our new master blender, well, I say new because she joined, she didn't join. She actually took over as master blender at the beginning of 2020, but I don't count 2020 as a year, so she's still new as far as I'm concerned. Trudy Ann Branker revisited these two blends that we're going to taste this evening. So, of course, you should know, if you know Mount Gay, you should know the Mount Gay Black Barrel. And definitely, if you know Mount Gay, there we go, you're in the room.
I don't know if that makes things better or worse.
Yeah, I told you, rum is the answer. Hashtag. So if you do know Mount Gay, you've got to know Mount Gay XO. So it's a real treat. I know that Trudy Ann has revisited, refined, and dare I say, improved these blends I'm going to share with you. So pour yourself a little drop if you haven't already, Henry, and everybody else who's watching. I hope we're not the only ones. And while it's giving a little bit of air, and you can continue to nose back and forth and start to try to get the aromas. And I'm going to talk you through what it is. Well, if you're interested, should we give you a little background on Black Barrel? Yes, please.
I'd love to know everything really. Like, is it pot still, column still? Sure. Just all the secrets. Well, some of the secrets. Sure. I can't reveal all of them.
For sure. We'll try to get to not get too geeky to lose anyone.
No. You want to get geeky. I think Master of Malt customers and viewers, they're all complete nerds.
Oh, so we're gonna go for it. We're gonna do a deep dive then.
Yeah, deep dive into rum, please.
Let's put on our mask and we're gonna go down.
Yeah.
So Mount Gay Black Barrel, we're minimum 3 years and maximum 7 years. So it's a 3 to 7 year old blend. And that blend, of course, we are a molasses-based rum, distilled in Barbados. It's then put into first fill ex-American whiskey casks. So those distillates, the column in the pot, are maturing side by side separately. They're then hand-selected by Trudy Ann and her team when they're ready. A famous thing at Mount Gay, we say it's ready when it's ready, not before. We don't look at timelines as a rule, but rather we're pursuing character. Character is not a measure of time, but rather, nature is telling us when it's ready. They're then combined, so they're blended together and rested, and then returned for a very short finishing or secondary maturation in a heavily charred bourbon cask. And I've got a treat for you.
Right.
I've got a treat for you. So what I have is a stave here. On my left, we've got an ex-American whiskey cask stave. And on my right, a heavily charred bourbon stave. And I'm hoping you can pick it up on camera, but
I think okay, yeah. Got it. I'm looking the wrong way around. Yeah.
Exactly.
Heavily charred. Yeah, lots of
there we go. So you can really see a difference in the charring, and I think it's quite evident that if you were to char a piece of wood, it's equivalent of like a charcoal briquette. So of course, your meat on your grill is going to get really smoky. And that's one of the main characteristics of the Mount Gay Black Barrel, that there's this smokiness to it. However, because we're minimum 3 years, we're already in a period of rum maturation of dried fruits, and then and then the maximum at 7, you're going from dried fruits to juicy fruits. So there's real complexity. That 4-year period, which by the way is equivalent to about 12 years in Scotland, for instance, because the evaporation rates are 300%. 1 year Barbados is almost 3 years in Scotland. So it's quite a huge, if you think of a whiskey, a 2-year-old versus a 14-year-old, it's night and day. Okay, so lots and lots of complexity within that range. Now, when we taste Mount Gay rums, absolutely we need 4 things to keep in mind. And I call them the 4 pillars of Mount Gay, or rather the 4 walls that hold up our roof. And those are aromas and flavors that you will detect in all of Mount Gay rums. So, first, ripe bananas. Second, almonds. Third, coffee or a mocha note. And fourth, vanilla. So these 4, bananas, almonds, coffee, vanilla. And these are the 4 aromas and flavors that you will find in every Barbados rum. And of course, Mount Gay being the first, it kind of belongs to us. We own these 4 pillars. All right. Now, of course, not confined to those 4, because a natural product will be multidimensional, like the most beautiful flower you've ever seen. So it's still going to be giving you more and stimulating not only flavors and aromas, but hopefully some memories as well. And of course, we're creating a memory together. Okay. So Henry, I hope you've been nosing back and forth. Can you help me out?
And just that banana note that you mentioned is really, really jumping out at me. And I think, and then I get a bit of coconut as well, vanilla.
Sure. What about some dried pineapples?
Yeah, and then maybe see, when you mention it, maybe I'm just easily suggestible, but I get that maybe a bit of orange peel.
Peel.
Yeah, it's a journey, isn't it?
There's a spicy note to it as well. You should have a little bit of a tickle under the nose. This is not an ABV burn. This is not an overproof rum. This is 43%, and that 43% ABV is not a random number at Mount Gay. We really think that 43% ABV is exactly what Trudy Ann is selecting at Mount Gay, and that's what she wants you, the ABV strength, where she wants you to experience exactly what she experiences as well. Okay, so despite being a little bit higher than a lot of other rums that are released around 40, it's very balanced on the nose. It's not aggressive at all. There's real refinement on the nose. For me, I'm opening up into, I'm getting your nutmegs and your cinnamons. There's some spearmint on the top. So
there's a minty note, isn't there? That sort of menthol refreshment cutting through it. Lovely.
Sure, and it's got me salivating now. So should we take our first sip?
Should we try something?
So the first sip, there's intensity, and I constantly challenge people. We have to challenge ourselves to figure out what's the difference between intensity and strength, and rather the perception of strength. Because what you're going to find once we get onto XO is, despite them being exactly the same strength, 43% ABV, the intensity is very different. So for me, when I do tastings, the first sip, not only is it to prepare the palate, because of course the mouth, the palate, the nose, the olfactories, which are the sensory organ in behind the palate, although that needs to be prepared, you also need to look at texture. Okay, so for me, first sip is preparation, but it's all about texture and mouthfeel. And then second sip is when I like to really dive deep into flavor, finish, and then the overall sensation, etc., etc. I think right now you should already have an intense, or you should remember the first sip was an intense sensation, but now the palate has really balanced and really come back down. So it's kind of like turning the volume down, not all the way down to 0, but we're at 5, whereas the first initiation is a 10, and now we're at 5. So you really see how it's very much becoming more and more balanced.
Yeah, so it's very smooth as well. When you have the first sip, and it's like, oh, it's rum, and then you have the second sip, and it's like, oh, that's smooth. Just beautiful.
Absolutely. So it's balanced. So you really see how it opens up. And I think the magic of a really good rum is the ability to separate the sensations and the flavors. Tip of the tongue, perception of heat. So there is like hot peppers almost, or there's a little bit of fire on the tip. White pepper, dare I say, black peppercorns. Then you've got your dried fruit, your juicy fruits in the middle. So you've got nice body. So there's a full-bodied rum here. And then there's a smoky, lingering aftertaste and some astringency, some chocolate in the back, not milk chocolate, of course. We're looking at
dark chocolate. Yeah, lovely.
And lots of character, great rum.
And what's the fruit? I get is it dark cherry or the juicy fruit? It's a sort
right. So the way how I describe it is it's the maraschino cherry, but it's really close to the center of the fruit. So there's a woody, dry note to it. So I kind of describe it almost like a maraschino liqueur. When you taste maraschino liqueur, it doesn't taste like cherries. It actually tastes like a woody chocolate vanilla.
It tastes like almond. So when you get the cherry pit, tastes like almond, and that's what you get here, like a fruity almond. Yeah, gosh, yeah. It's very striking.
And of course, that's very close to raw coconut as well. I think when I taste the Black Barrel, and it works beautiful with pineapple juice, for instance, which coconuts and pineapples, we know they are like the match made on earth. And one of the few combinations that just, you don't have to do much, and they work. Lemongrass and ginger, mint and lime, pineapple, coconut go hand in hand. So I think just by listening to your rum, and I tell people, if you listen to your rum and you get these flavors, those flavors are going to kind of point the way into not only how to drink it, but what flavor combinations can work. I challenge everybody. It's summer. Hopefully we're going to be able to have these amazing barbecues again. Your meats, your skewers, pineapple, coconut, Black Barrel drizzled is going to be the best thing you ever had. And of course, why not? A little bit of pepper. It's going to stimulate the tip of the tongue as well.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah. So you'd mix this as well as having it neat. You'd do that.
Absolutely. I think Black Barrel is the perfect bridge. So if you're already consuming and understand and enjoy liquids that have some tannic characteristics, so they're resting on wood for well, in this case, medium to long resting, so 3 to 7, you're going to understand Black Barrel. So it is the bridge. If you're already, your friend, your colleague, your family member, if they're already into dark aging spirits, whether that's cognacs, armagnacs, whiskeys, single malt, bourbons, you can bring them straight away into the category of rum and through Mount Gay with Mount Gay Black Barrel. And that's neat. As me and you we're drinking rum neat, and it's not aggressive. It's very flavorful. And I think it's really important to point out that rum as a category for many, many decades is kind of considered, the alcoholic component of a mixed drink or a cocktail. But rather, rum has real flavor, and I think culturally, if you ever come to Barbados, and of course, I invite everybody that's watching, you are going to see how our culture, our music, the way we speak, the way we dance, the way we eat, is very close to rum because our history, 1703, 1627, they're very, very, very close. So yeah, I think it's relevant for all, and clearly it helps us technically as well to sort out our technical issues.
Well, exactly. I'm gonna advise this when I speak to IT in future, rather than have you tried turning it off and on again. It's like, have you tried the Black Barrel?
There we go.
Makes everything better.
Absolutely.
Should we try a bit of the XO?
Sure. Let's jump on to the XO. So I'll just move the Black Barrel out of the way because we're building up.
This is a huge favorite of mine, so I'm very excited about this. And has it? I mean, you were saying that Trudy Ann has changed things a little bit. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think I kind of compare it to when you have a new chef in a very successful restaurant that is well known. They still have to maintain and keep the frequent customers, the returning customers happy. So they need to be able to identify, blind, if you will, their favorites. And that's a challenge for the new chef because the new chef wants to express themselves. They might want to take it in a different direction. But we've been around for 3 centuries. You know, people know what the characteristics of a Mount Gay are. And absolutely, they're also very demanding. This is the other thing. You know, we are known for creating and releasing possibly some of the best rums in the world. And I think that's a really good introduction to XO, because XO was and still is, I'd like to think, the benchmark for these styles of rums. The very first iteration of XO was released in 1992. Now, in 1992, definitely in the UK, there were not a lot of rums like this. The category of sipping rums, as we have today, which if you go into any good spirits retailer, there are hundreds of bottles, didn't exist. So this was something very special, and dare I say, a pioneer, a revolutionary. And it became the benchmark. And it was the benchmark for many years, gaining every single award you can think of. Golds, grand golds for 10 years, lifetime golds for 20 years. After lifetime gold, I'm not sure what comes after, but this is and has been the best of the best, okay? Now, you might wonder, well, if something's not broken, why fix it? And I think, you know, you don't stick around for 3 centuries if you kind of sit on the mountaintop and you think you know everything. We're continuing to learn, we're continuing to challenge ourselves, and most importantly, we're always listening to our customers, our consumers, you know, the people who are drinking our rums and giving us their feedback. And that feedback was, well, you're not the only rum in my cabinet anymore. So although we were the benchmark in 1992, we did recognize that now consumers, rum aficionados, the rum geeks here with us, they have, you know, Worthy Park, they have Appleton's, they have the Zelliers, they have the Four Squares, you know, these amazing rums, and we're shoulder to shoulder with them. And we needed to make sure that XO becomes the new benchmark for the future. And I know that's a huge statement, but that really was the challenge that we set ourselves. And I think Trudiane achieved that. But of course, you know, the tasting is what, you know, decides if she's achieved that. Now, the rum itself, technically, we're looking at a 5 to 17-year-old pot and column blend. Blending is what we do at Mount Gay. The difference here, or rather the improvement, the refinement, is there's an addition. So we're using ex-American whiskey casks, ex-bourbon casks, and now that new addition is ex-cognac casks. Now, the complexity just by that addition of that cognac cask in the blend is going to be expensive. Now, if you know anything about cognac, Limousin oak in particular is synonymous with florals. And traditionally, when you speak about rums, florals like, you know, violets or any plant that doesn't have a fruit generally isn't a description in rum. So rum is very much on the fruity side, or if there are florals, we talk about orange blossoms. You know, we talk about the lime blossoms. So florals and characteristics like apple skin, these are things that now become part of the blend. So it becomes not only more complex, but you can use it. You can, you know, the applications are wider. We now know that robust rums are used in cocktails, for instance. So a wider array of flavors and aromas definitely is going to be better for what the consumer is looking for. And that demand has produced, I think, the rum of the future. Honestly, this is the new benchmark. It's definitely going to be a favorite of anyone that's jumping into rum for the first time at this level, if they're already into mature dark spirits. But even that person that's been with us on that journey since 1992, it's going to satisfy them as well. I'm not sure if you've tasted yet, but I'm hoping that you were kind of picking the nose apart a little bit. What do you think about the nose?
Well, I mean, the tropical fruit just jumps out. You know, the sort of pineapple,
mangoes, cherries,
yeah. And then the menthol note is now sort of tobacco. So it's you know, very almost like, you know, like a cognac. It smells like an old cognac.
No, sure. There's that menthol note that you speak about. You know, when you pour XO, I'm not sure if you're in a room that is enclosed, but I've got the door closed there at the office and the windows are closed, and the whole room smells like XO. You know, it really is one of those blends that jumps out of the glass. And dare I say, you know, at the beginning when I was talking about Black Barrel, where I challenge people and say, well, intensity, you know, versus strength, you can really feel the intensity just jumping out of the glass without even tasting yet. You know, I haven't touched it to the lips as yet, but for sure, all these aromas are kind of swirling above the glass and enveloping all the senses. And I think this is a really good representation of what we should all be demanding from liquids like this that have maturity, do claim to be, you know, robust and round and characterful. So I think XO is a really good example of that. And I would be quite happy, you know, back and forth under the nose for 15 minutes or so. I mean, I'd be thirsty, which, you know, and we'd run out of time. But I think it's quite obvious that, you know, within the couple minutes I've been chatting away, that menthol note that started this little, you know, semi-rant that I'm doing has really settled to become like these warm pastry notes. So I'm actually at raisins and sultanas now, going into like that nutmeg, you know, Sunday afternoon baking, that, you know, banana bread. You know, everyone's had banana bread for the last 12 months under lockdown conditions for sure. But more and more, I think it's just an ever-expanding liquid that is so complex and delicate that I adore. Okay, so tip number 2, how's that intensity? If we compare it to Black Barrel, definitely a little bit more intense than Black Barrel. I think it's also evident that you have this nice warming, you know, there's a warming on the chest, so it's really giving you a hug, which is an indication of how to drink it. You should be sipping it. You know, take your time with this. This is take off your watch. You're going to be in good company, hopefully. If you're lucky, stand between the toes with a sunset. The sun is almost coming down here in London. Definitely not the same as looking out, you know, on a bench at Daphne's on the West Coast. But for sure, the palate is singing already. You know, the difference of Black Barrel first sip versus first sip XO, very, very different. There's this silky texture already that you can sense on the first sip of XO. So a distillate of quality. And again,
I've just got one question for you.
Sure.
When you distill from the pot still or the column still, is it always the same new make that produces Black Barrel, XO, Eclipse, that kind of stuff? It's just aged for longer?
No, that's a really good question. I think it's difficult to describe because it goes against everything that we understand as humans. You know, we quantify everything, we measure it. You know, we create a recipe. You know, we're making sure that weights and lengths and all these things are, you know, we're obsessive as humans. We need to have parameters. How far away do you live? It's 10 minutes, you know, at 60 kilometers an hour. But rum is the exact opposite. We are distilling, you know, from molasses in your column stills. That liquid, same, you know, coming out of your pot stills, going into the same cask type. So let's say American whiskey cask. They're sitting side by side. Nature takes over. And ultimately, each cask is maturing at its own rate. Now, absolutely, we have an idea. You know, this is the distillers and the master blender secret. Absolutely. But there is some, you know, anomalies that happen in an environment that has high temperatures, high humidity, high evaporation rate. Those reactions really produce these anomalies that, you know, that exact same liquid put on the exact same day in 2 different casks will taste completely different on the same day when you open them, you know, 5 years later, 6 years later. So to answer the question, yes, there is the same liquid that produces Black Barrel and XO. Yeah. Yes, of course, Black Barrel has been sitting for longer, but it's not the only parameter. You know, it is not a recipe of, you know, a 5 to 17 that 50% of it is 5-year-old and 25% is 10 and 25% is 17. It's actually every batch we produce has to taste like the previous batch. So it's a real, you know, I don't want to say gamble, but it's the closest thing to giving 10 people different measurements of flour, water, yeast, and then expect them to make the exact same loaf of bread, which they can't. But actually, that's what we're doing every single day. So
yeah, I'm in awe of master blenders that they can have that, you know, recipe and be able to just, because as you say, every cask is different, and they can just do it over and over again. I think it's just incredible sort of senses, memory, awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely a high pressure position. I think if you think of profession, people who do distillates and are really good at what they do, it's under 100 in the world, and it hasn't expanded just because the spirit industry has expanded. Like, it really is. Of course, it's a measure of science. Of course, there's artistry. There's lots and lots of pressure, but also nature is constantly changing. So, it's about that adaptation, and really for us, when I try to explain that, it's very difficult initially to understand, because it's not measured outside of the character. It's not a time measure. It's really when we taste, is it ready? Can it be used in the specific blend on the day? And if not, it goes back to rest. We're not rushing. We're just making sure that we're taking care of our distillates and taking care of our stock.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this is so layered. You taste it and you're just like, oh, it tastes of this. It's almost sort of hard to put a finger on, because it's just changing the whole time.
Sure. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm on my third sip already, and you can actually identify, more and more flavors. For by the third sip or the fourth sip of XO, you're really going into the dark chocolates, and those juicy fruits. But still, that cognac cask is still bringing you back to a pear skin. There's a real floral essence to it as well. So those peppermint, those spearmint heads, and that lemon peel, there's a real freshness to it. So although we are deep into those Christmas, juicy, really rich characteristics, there's still that floral, citrusy dimension that's there.
We're just getting some questions coming through. One of them is about, do you ever do single pot still releases, so a release from just one distillation type?
Well, it's funny. It's an interesting question, because the original Barbados rum was only pot stills. So, if you think we're beginning 1703, column still distillation really only came to the Caribbean around 1896 and made its way to Barbados around 1903. So the original rum is 100% pot still. Of course, we've become are synonymous with being the masters of blending, using column and pot. And I think it's not a case of one is better than the other, but rather it's the yin and the yang. Column still distillates, fresh, floral, citrusy, the spine in a lot of ways. Still lots and lots of character. And then, of course, pot still, big, robust, intense, flavorful, and the aging potential absolutely is going to be on the side of a pot still distillation. But yes, a couple of years ago, so 2019, Trudian released a pot still expression under our Master Blender series. Unfortunately, it sold out. It's very difficult to find. Those of you that have it, it is sublime. It is an amazing, amazing, amazing rum. And I think it's kind of going back to the original rum. That was her inspiration. For her first release as Master Blender at the range, she released this rum. It's a single year distillation. So it's a 2009 distillation. So it's a 10-year-old, because it was released in 2019. Those casks were selected, blended together, and then sent for a very short resting period on first fills in order to try to get some of that that nuttiness that rums, at the beginning of their journey have. And that blended really well with the juicy, fruity notes that a 10-year-old is already, they're already in their lifespan at 10, they're already into juicy dried fruits and all the other characteristics that are known at Mount Gay, the four I was talking about. So it's an incredible rum. So to answer the question, yes, we've done it. Once, a one-off, you can search for it. I think the secondary sellers are changing hands for lots and lots of money. If you can find it, grab it, because it's one of the, when we talk about our moments in history, if you think master blenders don't come around very often. Alan Smith was with us for just under 30 years. And of course, we're at the beginning of Trudian. So definitely you're not going to have a change of hands. So I think besides being definitely collectible, And I'm an encourager, please, buy our rums and drink them with friends and family. But a real precious, important rum in our history, of course.
Should we have a cocktail? I think there was talk of
Oh,
cocktails.
definitely. So I came up with something for you. It's called, well, first of all, let's not give you the name yet. Let's tell you what's inside. So the idea is simple drinks, and I think I'm a big believer in drinks should not have a lot of ingredients. You should be able to definitely make it at home. You should, number two, be able to make it very quickly. You want to spend time with your family, your friends, rather than having to run back and forth into the kitchen to constantly make something that takes 10 minutes just to batch up. This one is a very straightforward cocktail. So we're going to start with Mount Gay Black Barrel, of course. Mount Gay XO. So we're going to go straight to nice, big, robust flavors. So 60 ml of that. Please forgive me. I like my drinks to be a little punchy. A nice 60 ml. It's a real twist on an old-fashioned, of course, one of the most ancient cocktails in the world. An old-fashioned, of course, is your Mount Gay XO, your Angostura bitters, stirred down with some ice and then orange zest. So it's a very, very similar drink. So 60 ml of the XO. Then I thought, well, liqueurs, especially in a country where the seasons are changing, we looked at Saint-Germain. So Saint-Germain is 20 ml of that.
What is Saint-Germain?
It's the flowers.
Elderflowers. Oh, okay.
For a second. So it's those elderflowers. And of course, elderflowers are seasonal. So we know these two things that I looked at are very close to each other. So April, May, and June. And of course, the first part, April, is rhubarb. Now, the beautiful thing about liqueurs is we're able to enjoy these flavors year-round. And I think when you combine the two, so 2 to 3 dashes of that, of the rhubarb bitters, when we combine these together, you get the sweetness of the cocktail, but you also get the tartness, right? So you have, the light florals of elderflower. You have those tart characteristics of rhubarb. I think some people describe rhubarb as kind of a sour meets tart, meets sweet. So I thought it was super, super interesting to kind of combine them together. And then you just kind of stir it down. And at this point, you can have, as I said, it's all about your guests. They can be around, whether it's in the kitchen, whether it's in the garden. Dilution. And then top tip is I've got one of these little silicone ice molds with the larger ice cubes. Put them in the freezer. And then you're going to just have one of those into your glass. And those big ice cubes, what they do is they reduce the dilution of your drink. So in the mixing glass, you're kind of really controlling how much dilution you want your drink here, and then it arrests it. Okay, so over your large block. There we go. And then, of course, again, we're tying together the florals, the body of the XO. Let's go with the peeler. Nice orange peel. I like my orange peels to be nice and long and thin. So over the top of the glass, over the rim, absolutely. Give a nice little twist. You got to drink with your eyes, just like food. So if it looks pretty, you're almost there. Just drop it in. Nothing too fancy. Gonna have you got a nice Mount Gay cork coaster, and that's your drink. And it's called a Rhubarb Delight. The Delight
sounds amazing.
Yeah, I think, and again, even though these flavors are seasonal, because we can enjoy them through liqueurs, and you have your floral, you have your tartness, because of course any drink needs a sweet and a sour to kind of balance and to give the taste buds a foundation. And Mount Gay XO, we're not playing too much with the liquid to mask the flavor. There's loads and loads of flavor within the Mount Gay XO itself. So it's not a case of creating a cocktail that is overpowering, the XO, because it's just Sublime all on its own.
Yeah.
I wish you were here with me, Henry.
Cheers. Well, I'm very happy with this. So that does sound. I'm just seeing if anyone has any more questions, because we're going to wrap it up soon. We've had lots of comments saying how much they love rum, how much they love XO, how much they love Eclipse. So you're kind of winning hearts and minds out there. I've got a question about premiumization. That's what everyone's talking about at the moment. Okay. Is that something that you've noticed, that people are drinking less but better?
No, I think there are a few of us that have always focused on creating and releasing quality. We've been around over 3 centuries, almost 325, and we've only released, let's say, about 20 expressions. Now, that's not because we're lazy. That's not because, there isn't opportunity to release, but rather we're focused on pursuing not only the best possible rum that we can produce, but we challenge ourselves to produce the best possible rum in the world. So I think from our perspective, when we do look at competitors, absolutely we admire, we're inspired by, but the challenge is on our backs. We look at that premium rum category as something that we've always been part of. Dare I say, we've led it for many, many years. It's just great to have more and more players, competitors and friends and family. The rum family is unlike any other category. We really do communicate with each other, we compliment each other, we critique each other, and we raise each other up. And I think it's important because we need that. The world we're living in, we definitely need more of that. And the premiumization of rum is obvious. I think more and more, if you taste the quality of distillate, the craftsmanship, it should be going in that direction. And I'm so happy, working at Mount Gay for the last 10 years and falling in love with rum 20 years ago. It's really refreshing to be able to be invited into rooms rather than before when we were banging on the doors trying to get in. But now, clearly, I think there's a wider appreciation. The price point definitely on the market, as I said, that secondary market for those limited editions or limited releases, we are seeing more and more demand for those. So yes, I think we will always produce, premium rums, absolutely. But even our introductory rums, Eclipse, Black Barrel, these are still going to be premium because this is the only type of rum that we know how to make. So, I think my answer might be a bit different than if you ask somebody else. But absolutely, I think premium rum is here to stay. And dare I say it, it's going to expand. And it's already expanding. The data is showing us that there is a very much not only an increase in interest, but an increase in choices.
Yeah, no, I just from our point of view, when we go out there and we meet customers, sort of whiskey drinkers and stuff, they're all turned on to dark rum, to Mount Gay, because they appreciate a distinctive dark spirit. I think those sort of categories where I'm a whiskey drinker, I'm a rum drinker, are blurring, and it's just I really enjoy a really well-made spirit.
Sure, I think people also want to hear a story. They want to be part of something that has a little bit more than just a sparkly, shiny, attention-grabbing bottle or a spirit. They really want to dive a little bit deeper. I think for me, I call them these rum moments that I have with people. And again, I hope I'm having a rum moment with you as well.
We are.
Is for sure, is, understanding that this spirit from Barbados is not only unique, but it has a heritage, a tradition. It's very, very special. And being Bajan, it's quite emotional as well, because in every other spirit category, there are juggernauts. You hear these names, and these names are household names. But in some circles, people don't actually know about Mount Gay. And I kind of love that as well. It's a little engine that could. And when I tell the story about 1703 and the traditions and our water source being there from even earlier than 1703, and the bedrock of the island being limestone and creating this perfect water source, rich molasses, pot and column still distillation experts, blending in this environment that's perfect for spirit production. And then, 43% of real complex, diverse, beautiful spirit. It's just a joy. I literally have the best job in the world, honestly.
You do. Yeah, you do. Well, it's a great moment to end there. These are both available. Mount Gay Black Barrel and Mount Gay XO, both available from Master of Malt. And I just want to say thank you so much, Miguel. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but the rum came through in the end. So
I did say it. Thank you for inviting me, Henry, and I'll see you real soon in person.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Cheers. Thank you. And thank you everyone